click on the face and type in Michelle Obama.
Okay, got it. Think we in business now.
You did it.
I did it. I did it. How are you?
I'm good. Look at you, cutie.
Oh man, I'm in North Carolina with my parents.
Your folks. Where
Yes, mom and dad. They
at?
in here. They somewhere around here.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm okay. I'm doing.
Family's great.
Yeah. How about you?
Family as well. Family as well. Doing the homeschool thing. But let's jump right into it while we got everybody here, if you don't mind.
But I don't mind.
All right. So this season of the NBA and WNBA has looked like no other season in my basketball career. So how can we continue to mobilize our voices and use our platforms to get out the vote this election cycle?
I agree. You all are doing it up, and it's because of leaders like you and Dwayne Wade and LeBron. I mean, you guys are operating as a coalition in some really smart ways, and I, for one, it has been just amazing to watch you all use your platforms. I think you keep doing what you're doing. Because you are the role models. You know, there are a lot of young men who are looking up to you all. You are the heroes and the icons. So they are going to follow in your footsteps. And I think a lot of times we hear it where athletes are told, just dribble the ball, don't talk. Didn't
All
have
the time.
that's nonsense. That isn't even the tradition of sports, particularly in the Black community. That is where so much of every movement has played itself out with icons like Muhammad Ali and you name it, who have used their platform. So I think the important thing is to do what you do, continue that. But also remember that, you know, there's the big reach that people like you can have, Chris, because of your platform. But I don't
Yes,
want
ma'am.
anybody to underestimate the power of just impacting the community that you're in. You know, you don't have to go on Instagram Live to have an impact. You can talk to your cousin, to your neighbor, to the people in your own household that you know may not be paying attention or know how to engage. I've said this before, in this past election, the margin of difference in a couple of the swing states was 5 votes per precinct.
That's crazy.
5 votes. And that's in a presidential election. So you imagine the narrow margin of victory when it comes to electing the police chief or
Right.
school board or the mayor or the council member. The margin of difference in most of these elections is that small. So anybody who's listening who says that their vote doesn't matter and it ain't, you know, doesn't count, 5 votes, the difference between who we now have in office and having something better. 5 votes. And everybody knows 5 people that they
Yes.
just coulda, if they had gotten a text and helped them get their ballots or driven somebody to the polls, that cousin, that neighbor. So you don't have to have a big reach to have an impact. And I want young people to know that. I'm telling my girls, you know, don't worry about, you know, just going to the protest. I want you to go through your contact list and call every young person you've ever known and just make sure they're voting. Make
Right.
sure they're not gonna fall asleep. Make sure they're getting their ballots early. You know, so there's small ways that we can make a change in this election and in every election.
And that's why you're so special and that you make it cool and exciting, right? And that's why Nike has an unbelievable reach and to make it exciting and cool for these kids to make sure that they understand that their voice can be heard and that they're not just the next generation, they're the current generation and we need to hear them. So thank you for all that you do.
Thanks, babe.
And my second question is some of my colleagues, teammates, family members get so discouraged about voter suppression from long lines to purge voting polls. We see it every day. How do we move past it and not let it keep us on election day, right? How do we get past that and get out and do it?
Well, I think first we have to understand the truth. There are a bunch of lies being spread about how hard it is to vote and how people are trying to suppress the polls and so on and so forth. Uh, Now, a lot of that does happen,
Hmm.
but the truth is that that's not what makes the difference in an election. It is not voter suppression that has this person in the White House right now. it's the failure for people to move past that doubt and that frustration and just go vote and get it done. You know, voting is relatively easy in this country. Now, it could be easier. You know, there are hurdles that we don't need, but
Right.
even with those in place, it is a simple process to get. You can go to whenweallvote.org and find out how to get a mail-in ballot, which is one way that everybody in my household votes. We have been voting by mail since I can remember. So, you know, we've never had a problem with that. You can also get assistance in knowing how to work through the ballot. You know, you don't have to do it right then and there. So some people are just intimidated by it, and they use
Really?
the fear of voter suppression. So yeah, in any election, you can probably go to your local election office and get sort of what they call just sort of a sheet of what the ballot looks like, who's on it, so that you don't feel like you're standing in the polling place making that decision. I do that
Right.
all the time. So there are many, many ways, and When We All Vote gives that information. But I think what I would say to people is that, look, I understand the frustration. I understand the alienation. I understand the fear. And I have faced a lot of that directly in my life, but never once have I let that frustration and alienation, have I ever let anybody else's hatred of me or fear of me keep me from exercising my God-given right and privilege to vote.
Right.
That's what they want us to do.
Correct.
They want us
Exactly.
to stay home. You know, there
They
are
want us to make excuses, right?
right. So we just can't let that happen. We can't ever let that happen, but we definitely can't afford to have that happen in this election, because everything is at stake in this election.
And educating each other. I think about myself in the group chats that I'm in, whether it be with some of my homies or my family and everyone that works with us, is you got to educate each other. You know, just like you're doing here, you got to educate each other and you got to talk about it. You got to understand how important each election cycle is, not just the 4 years, but 2 years. And I think that's very important. So,
and every information is available on the internet. You know, I mean, even understanding how our democratic process works, it feels complicated, but it's not. And I just think people have to move past this notion of intimidation. So much of voting is like a cultural habit. You've either grown up in a household where everybody votes and that's just the way it is, or you've grown up where people don't talk about it or it doesn't feel important. And that's what When We All Vote is trying to do. We're trying to shift the culture so that this
got to.
becomes as important, as I've been saying, as getting your driver's license. And
Right.
let me tell you, getting a license is way harder than voting, right? You gotta get a permit, you gotta have hours of driving, you gotta go to the DMV. Let's just stop there. If you
Right.
go to the DMV and go through that, you can't tell me that voting is too hard, because the
You're
DMV
right.
is crazy.
It is. It is. That line is not a game either. You're
So
right.
go and get their license, 15, 16, everybody's ready, everybody's excited, everybody wants to use it as their ID. So we do what we want. It is not that this is hard, it's just that we don't find it relevant. And I hope that what we're experiencing now, the racial unrest, the horrible words coming from this leader, that continues to divide us and put our young people at risk. If that doesn't move us, right, if that's not enough to get us up out of our seats and have our voices heard in this election, then I'm not sure what will.
And this is the last question before I let you go. And you know, I'm a parent of two, and you know, especially the father of a young Black man, and seeing all the social unrest that's going on. I really want to reach young men and make sure that they know how important their vote is and their voice is. What's your message to them?
We need it all. And I know that there are a lot of young people who think that it doesn't matter. You know, they are just too frustrated with the whole system. They don't like politics. They don't trust politics. They don't trust law enforcement. They don't trust anything that has to do with a system.
Right.
And I get it. You know, a lot of our young men have been victimized by a system that is proven to be unjust. And so people don't trust. But the bottom line is that we live in a democracy, and this is how power is determined. There will be one of two men who will be the president of the United States, whether we vote or not. And there is a big difference. And if we really want to get at the issues that impact us, from having access to jobs, a decent education, being able to pay our bills, having a criminal justice that isn't arbitrary, a system that isn't arbitrary, having better relationships with law enforcement, to saving our planet. The only way to impact those issues is to vote. Protests, rallies, all of that, critical. Proud of all the young people that are out there doing it from all backgrounds. That is a part of the solution, is making your voice heard, coming together, rallying. But if that's all we do is a protest and a hashtag, you know what the powers that be do? They'll let us protest all day long.
All day long.
March,
And be right at the polls.
The soles off your feet, because I will still run this thing as long as you stay home and don't vote. It is as simple as that. So if we really want to make change, real fundamental change, and change is still slow. You know, your vote doesn't guarantee you that it all goes away. I had a lot of people who were like, well, there's still racism. We had a black president. Well, no, big change doesn't go away after 8 years, 10 years. It's generational. And we're putting a marker down, not just for ourselves, but for our kids. You know, our votes today may not make a bit of difference in our lives,
but our kids
better be sure, you know, how you are treated in the world, you know, how they've shown up in the world, what kind of opportunities they have, how they're viewed, how they're loved and respected. That's being decided on November 3rd. Period, point blank, end of story.
That's it. That was great. And I tell you, in the sports world, we always say, like, what's our why, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why do you play? Why do you train? And so the reason why you vote is, like you said, is for your kids. Yep. You may not see the change, but your kids absolutely should be able to see the change. So, Mrs. Obama, I say thank you. A big thank you to Nike for allowing When We All Vote to use the platform today. It's been a long day, been a great day, some great conversations, and you know your time is precious. And I'm so grateful for you being here. So everyone, please go to When We All Vote, figure out how you guys can get registered to vote. And thank you as always.
Thank you, Chris. I want to thank you and everyone else that has been involved in this amazing day. It has been a huge success. All of the DJs, all of our other friends and celebrities who have joined in to make this possible. We've had experts. We've had our When We All Vote team. It couldn't have been a more successful day. And I am grateful to everyone who made this day possible. Chris, I love you. Give your family my best. And
love you too. You do the same.
When we can be together.
Absolutely. But until then, we got to vote.
That's right. Love you much. Be safe.
Bye-bye.